All right, welcome back to another episode of the John Howard Society Monthly Podcast. We are back here on Friday, June 28th. We're excited to be back here again today with Conor Mullin, and we've got an exciting guest today, Brynn Devine from Bloominghouse. So let's take a second and just sort of remind folks who we are. So I'm Josh here. I work with the John Howard Society as the Coordinated Access Coordinator, and I am the host of the podcast.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Conor Mullin, President of the John Howard Society of PEI.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brynn Devine. I am the Executive Director and Co-founder of Bloominghouse.
All right. Thank you both for jumping in again today.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. So just a reminder that we will continue to do this on a monthly basis. The schedule of what that'll look like sometimes changes, but I'll mention again at the end. We're due to be back in 2 weeks on Friday, July 12th, again at 11 a.m. Eastern. So we're continuing to do this as a means to provide monthly updates about what's going on at John Howard, as well as a chance to spotlight another great organization such as Bloominghouse. All right, Conor, so I'll open it up to you for sort of the board perspective on anything that's going on here in June or us moving forward.
So currently, Josh, the board of directors is on a little bit of a summer holiday. We won't be meeting again until September. We did have our last meeting earlier in June. A couple of things in the works right now. I don't want to get too much into it. They're very much in the preliminary stages, but I'll have a couple of, I think, exciting new programs to mention when we're here in the fall. Since you and I were last year, though, I did attend a meeting of the John Howard Society of Canada, of which PEI is a member organization. That was a great meeting. Got to hear a lot about what's going on across Canada. There's some really interesting stuff. Some of it pertains to PEI, though. So there's some really interesting research being done right now by a professor at the University of Moncton, looking at how John Howard Society services Indigenous clients across Canada. And our organization is going to be part of the groups that are contacted and providing some data for that study. So that's going to be really interesting. A little bit later in August, we are also hosting here on PEI the executive directors from all John Howard societies across Atlantic Canada. So that's going to be a great opportunity to have our colleagues here to sit down and discuss any potential future regional collaborations. And I know we're also going to have the executive director of the John Howard Society of Canada here as well. So that's going to be great to have Catherine Latimer, that's her name, here. And she's been very supportive of the John Howard Society of PEI, of this podcast, and of everything that we're doing. Last time you and I were here, we talked a little bit about an upcoming program that we're launching, which is in collaboration with the Government of Canada, which is going to be a program designed to address homelessness in the veteran community. So as we talked about on the last podcast, there are a number of members of the veteran community here on Prince Edward Island who are dealing with homelessness right now. And this, with new collaboration with the Government of Canada, we're going to have some funding and dedicated caseworker specifically to deal with veterans and the issues that they're facing. We're getting very close to the launch date of that program, and that's something that we're very excited about, and we'll certainly keep the listeners updated as that rolls out.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Just going to jump back for a second. I think that's pretty cool that we have the opportunity to host the executive directors from across Atlantic Canada here and sort of bring them to the island and showcase some of the things we've been up to.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of collaboration that happens in the region with the different John Howards across Atlantic Canada. There have been other meetings in other provinces, but this is going to be the first time that we're hosting here on PEI, and say it's going to be great to get everyone here on the island in the summer when there's just no better place to be, I always say, than PEI in the summer.
Yes.
So to get everybody here when the weather's beautiful, and as you say, to showcase the great work that we're doing here, not only for our regional colleagues, but also for our national colleagues as well. So it's going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah, just another sort of sign of the progress and the great work that's been happening here in the community.
Absolutely.
Great. And as you said, the veteran homeless program, the case management program, is inching closer and closer to sort of becoming a reality.
Yep.
Versus sort of the vision that it's been for a period of time here since we were received the go-ahead that it's going to be happening. And then I think that's a big step forward as well. We talked a bit about that last time and sort of the opportunity to unearth and learn more about that population.
Absolutely. And I think part of the data collection that we do as part of our work and other organizations that deal with the homeless community here, as we gather more data about numbers and demographics of people who are experiencing homelessness, it allows us to identify specific populations where maybe there's a gap in services and lets us tailor services and resources towards those gaps. This is one that we noticed through collecting data, was that there were a number of members of the veterans community. And as we continue to collect more data through HIFIS, through the point in time counts, which I know we're going to talk about later, we'll hopefully be able to launch more programs such as this targeted at other different demographic groups.
Yeah, and that sort of is reminiscent of a bit of an exchange you and I had the other day as you were preparing to make an appearance there on CBC.
Absolutely, yeah.
And sort of just highlighting that the homelessness is affecting all population groups and all types of different folks. And as you brought up, this opportunity for a targeted program. Yeah. Sometimes we have these sort of general approaches that work for the majority of people that are out there. But there are individual needs within certain population groups.
Absolutely, yeah. Different population groups and different individuals too will all have different background factors that have either caused or are contributing to their homelessness. And the clearer we're able to identify those groups, the better able we are to target those causes and help people get housed and stay housed.
Right. So I think that covers sort of the initial things you brought up there. I'll highlight kind of a few things and we can kind of go back and forth on that. And Brynn, I know you're not a John Howard expert, if you will, but feel free to jump in with your 2 cents here as we go along. You're by no means excluded from the conversation. So we spoke last time about the tax program that was happening in partnership with the CRA and COC. And so that did happen again on June 18th. We had a little bit of an update on that. So there was 15 individuals supported as a part of that event, and 37 tax returns were completed.
That's great.
And so just another sign of the importance of that service and that opportunity for people.
Absolutely. And like you and I talked about last time, people getting the opportunity to sit down with CRA accountants and CRA representatives and do these tax returns can be pretty life-changing sometimes. And sometimes people find out they're entitled to big sums of money that they may not have otherwise known about. So it really can have a dramatic impact on people's lives. And that's another great program that we're very proud of.
Yeah. And then it does highlight, I know there's some data out there and some statistics around the number and percentage of Canadians that are not claiming what they're entitled to or are not receiving all the things they're entitled to. Yeah. And so if here on PEI, we can help lower that number and boost that income threshold for some of the individuals that are already, struggling day to day with their financial situation. And that's such a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
So next one of those is TBD. So we will hopefully have some more information next time we do this in a couple of weeks.
Yes, man, absolutely. And I'm glad that we're continuing to do this and that the turnout continues to be so good. As you say, 37 tax returns completed is a great number.
That's right. Yeah. No, it is. And I think that's important too, because, we gave some sort of kudos to the CRA for stepping up last time. And I think it's important from our end and as the sort of community end to demonstrate this need so that they don't feel like they're just kind of sending somebody out to be there for one or two people or one or two tax returns.
Absolutely. I know there is a significant need, and it's and we said it before and we'll say it again, like it's great that CRA is stepping up and providing this service free of charge to these two low income individuals. And as you can see, there is a great need, and it is having an impact, and it is changing lives.
Yeah, and it's just started. So there's also a chance that once it becomes a little more well known in the community, and if it moves from, around different spots on the island or within communities, we might get even more people coming.
Absolutely.
We've also been, we've always been open to and interested in partnerships and collaborations, which I think is common amongst a lot of organizations. It was certainly a priority for us. So I did want to highlight a few that we've formed over the recent month or two. So through the mental health and addictions program, the structured programming day program that they run there in Charlottetown through the hospital, we've been going on a 4-week basis when their 4-week cycle ends and doing some presentations to the clients there, offering some information about the services that we offer. And that's been really successful in terms of we've had individuals follow up. And it also is providing information and resources to the staff that work there too. So I think that's, one example. There's a couple more I'll throw out here, but of how we can increase the awareness of the services. And also, I think, contribute towards what I think we've spoken about this before, but this sort of idea of rebranding that while John Howard is certainly a proponent and interested in supporting individuals with criminal justice, that's not the only thing we do here on the island.
Absolutely. We are also significantly involved in helping all those experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness. And so, the more that we're able to get the message out that we're here and this is the kind of work that we do, is say not only to potential clients, but also to service providers who can direct future clients our way, the more often we can do that, the better.
Yeah, and so that's been a great relationship. And again, sort of just great that they are welcoming outside and partner organizations in to present as part of that 4-weekly cycle that individuals go through. So we're happy to be partnering with them. We also, more in the vein of criminal justice, did a presentation with probation and attended sort of a day that they had with outside organizations, and are working to strengthen that connection, particularly given our presence in the correctional facility there, both from housing and employment perspectives.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great partnership between John Howard Society and probation. Lots of people on probation have conditions about, trying to secure stable housing, employment, attend counseling or all these kinds of sessions. And those are all areas and services that John Howard could assist people in. So if we can become one more service provider that probation services can refer people to help them with those issues, again, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And as you sort of alluded to, we have likely so many mutual clients.
Yeah.
Between those that we see for employment and housing while incarcerated, and then those that are in the community either afterwards or already in the community. So if we can form those relationships and work in tandem with one another so that everybody's on the same page.
Absolutely.
It helps.
I'd just like to say, I applaud your effort to go and meet with people. I think the more you're able to insert yourself into others' environments and get your message out there during the monthly meetings at the hospital, you're removing a barrier to access for people. There is a lot of information. There are a lot of services out there, but it's very difficult sometimes to find them. So I think that's fantastic that you're going to people to provide services where they already are, to kind of eliminate that. What can be a pretty significant barrier to go out into community and find those things. So that's great.
I agree. You're right. It really can be, especially that so many members of the populations we serve have a lot of limitations and difficulties, mental health, addictions, things that can just make that navigation process even harder. And it's difficult in the best of circumstances to find that information and services sometimes. So, I think part of what we believe at the John Howard Society is meeting people where they're at, whether that be kind of where they're physically at or where they're at in their lives and their journeys to recovery and rehabilitation and whatnot. So whatever we can do to make that process easier for people, we're happy to do.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for that. And I think that's a good point. Is you do have to be proactive about it. There are so many great resources out there that are unknown, just because it's hard to navigate. I mean, even as an individual working in the community, it can be hard to navigate all these resources and know who do we contact for what, and how do we get a hold of these folks, and am I eligible, am I not eligible? So the more we can make that process clearer for folks, the better off we'll be.
Yeah.
The last partnership that we'll touch on is with social programs. So we and them both sort of took the proactive approach here. We had one of the managers from accessibility and one of the managers from social assistance come in to one of our team meetings and present some information. And again, another opportunity to form that partnership. And we got some great information from them about how to best work collaboratively with the workers who are assigned to the many folks that we work with that are a part of social programs. I think that was one of the struggles we've been having, is how do we best make that connection happen, knowing that they have a lot of great information and sometimes have already been working with people for a period of time and have a bit of a plan in place. And so if we can become a part of that or help shape that, it makes a lot more sense than us starting from ground zero, and sort of the same on their end as well. So I know that went really well. And then yesterday they hosted an info session for a number of organizations, one of which was ours. And so we had a full allotment of our staff attend that as well.
Excellent. As you say, right? Why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. And again, kind of back to that first conversation about money and access to finances and things, us taking the initiative to have a better understand of how that financial system works and how people become entitled for things can help us support and guide the individuals we work with to make sure they're getting everything that they can.
Absolutely. And one other thing that I want to mention, Josh, kind of in terms of collaboration, would be I guess I'm going to call it partnership or collaboration with the Salvation Army in Summerside, who have very kindly offered to share office space with the John Howard Society in the Down East Mall. So we will have permanent office space up there now in Summerside. Expanding into Summerside was something that was very important to the board of directors. For many years, John Howard was pretty much relegated to the Charlottetown area, and we knew that need existed well outside of Charlottetown in all across the island. So we're going to now have permanent and dedicated office space in Summerside. We're expanding services into Kings County. So I'm very happy and thankful to the Salvation Army for allowing us to share their office space. And I hope that we'll continue to grow our presence across the island.
For sure. No, I think that's a good point to mention that. It's nice to be partnered with a respected, well-established organization too, and sort of already have some traffic and flow and awareness from the community and the individuals that we would typically work with, already knowing where that is and coming in already for services.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I know, physical office space can always be a challenge. And even though lots of people, will find a way to get a hold of us if we're not on site somewhere, there is still a large number of individuals that don't have access to cell phones or email or data or things like that. So
having a location where people can drop into, as you say, because they have no other way to get a hold of us, or maybe some sort of emergency has popped up in their life that they need to get in and see somebody right away. So just having the office space to allow that to happen is, I think, is a big step and goes a long way towards, as Brynn said, towards removing barriers to accessibility for services.
That's right. Yeah. Particularly in that community,
Mm-hmm.
and probably Kings County even more so as well, where that rural aspect starts to come into play, and people are experiencing homelessness in different ways.
Yes, yeah, you're right. It can look very different in the rural context than it looks in the urban context, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I think we touched on pretty well all of the things we wanted to. We spoke about the distance learning for individuals who were incarcerated last time. I don't believe we have anything.
No,
Really touch back on
that's still in the works. You know, we still have buy-in from the Provincial Correctional Center. We still have buy-in from post-secondary institutions. So Keith Hillier, our executive director, is diligently working on just getting everybody to the table and making sure that we're all working together to get that program started. So no updates on that yet. I believe there was a memorandum of understanding circulated, but we're still just waiting to kind of hear back and get some final details sorted out on that. So once we do have some more information, though, we'll certainly keep everybody updated, because that's something else that we're very anxious to get on the go.
Yeah, for sure. Another opportunity to help folks move forward while they're, dealing with what they've had to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to bring up before we turn the spotlight over to Brynn?
I think that's everything for now.
Okay. All right, Brynn. So thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure.
We already referenced sort of partnerships with great organizations, Q Blooming House. Appreciate you coming here to speak a little bit about it. So let's sort of just open the floor up to, maybe chat a little bit about what Blooming House is, what kind of folks you support, and what that looks like. And then certainly we can go along the path of anything that's going on.
I can definitely do that. So Blooming House is a shelter for female identifying guests experiencing homelessness really across Prince Edward Island. We are based in Charlottetown, but we have and do serve guests from across PEI. We are open 16 hours. So we open at 4 p.m. and we close at 8 a.m. In the morning. We are in our 5th year of operations now. I know it seems both that we have been around forever and that it was just yesterday that Liz and I were putting beds together at midnight the night before we opened. So we see on average about 70 unique women a year at the shelter. We have, although this year I think that will be a little different, we have reached capacity really for this year. So if you were to rewind kind of to 2019, 2020, we really sat at about a 60 to 70% occupancy. We have not hit below 95% in almost a year now. So we are full, like we are very, very full. We only have 8 beds. So, one bed empty can kind of really lower that occupancy, but 95% is kind of now where we stay. And we're having a struggle kind of transitioning women out of the facility. So we're seeing a stark decline in the number of women that were able to successfully transition out of shelter, which is causing kind of stagnation in the house that we have not seen kind of before this year. We do have on staff 2 separate resource coordinators that our guests can connect with. One of them, they're kind of dedicated to helping with all of the things that are necessary to prepare someone to move into housing and to be successful in that. Our case management is very person-centered, so it really is up to the individual which area it is that they feel they most want to work on. We can help from everything from taking you to medical appointments to making sure you have the right glasses to, connecting you with your family members. We really can kind of do whatever it is that person really, feels strongly about. And then our second resource coordinator is focused specifically on housing. Since that has become such an issue as of, in the last kind of year to find any flavor of housing. Her job really is focused on supporting the women that we do already have housed. So we stay connected with women after they transition out of shelter, but also to really engage in landlords in the city and in the province and start that conversation early so that people understand that We remain connected to our guest once they transition into housing, and that we can be a primary support for both the resident and the landlord. In shelter, we provide all kinds of different things. So we provide transportation to and from the shelter. You can come at 4 p.m. or 8 p.m. We provide taxi services, and then we provide taxi services in the morning out of shelter. Oh. We provide dinner. So we do house supper 2 nights a week where staff cook a whole family type meal and we sit down. The other nights guests are kind of on their own, but there's lots of food for them to have access to. We do breakfast in the morning. There's laundry facilities for people to use. There is daily storage, short-term storage, long-term storage options available on site. We have an entire basement full of hygiene supplies and clothing, and if you do get housing, we can help outfit it, and we do all those kinds of things are also available to guests. We like to try and do some fun things in the summer. Now that the weather is nice, we like to do some barbecues. We have a fire pit out back. We concentrate a lot on relationship building. That is paramount to everything we do in shelter. And so those little activities like the family suppers, like the resource coordinators going to appointments, like the barbecues, are all really based in relationship building, because we really do feel like that is how we've been able to be so successful when we do get the chance to transition women out of the shelter, is they've developed those core relationships, and we're able to be kind of that primary support afterwards. So I feel like I took you on a very winding path of what Blooming House does. Yeah. You can feel free to challenge any of those things that I've said and ask further questions, but I think that kind of covers what it is we do.
I think so important what you said there, Brynn, about, this idea that once we get clients housed, it's not just, okay, you're housed, and then we step back, that, you and we at the John Howard Society, when we get people housed, we're still there providing those wraparound supports, because just getting someone in housing is the first step of the battle, and it's a significant step, but there's a lot of things that go on. I know we see at the John Howard a lot that, a lot of our clients still need a lot of support. Maybe they may never have been a tenant before, and so they need to learn how to do things like budget to pay their rent and all that kind of stuff, right? And so, to help provide people with those life skills, it's not only a benefit to the clients, but as you say, when we want to engage landlords, which we have to do if we're going to find housing, it's a little bit of maybe a comfort to the landlords to know that it's like, hey, we'll be there, and we can assist with any issues that may arise, right? So it's such an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and it's a real comfort to guests too, because once you've been in shelter a long time, that becomes your community, and change is hard for everybody, no matter what the change is. Even if it's a really great change, to go and now live on your own is scary. And this could potentially be the first time some of these guests have had their own place of any kind. So sometimes it really is just that person they can call when things go sideways, or when things are going well. You have someone that will pick up or take you to appointments, or make sure you get your groceries from food bank, or whatever those seemingly minor issues. You have someone who's able to kind of walk you through those processes.
For sure.
So yeah, that's a really important piece of what we do, and we've seen a huge success in doing that. We have seen that for those people that disengage, because it's always optional. You do not have to stay engaged with us after you find housing. 75% of people that disengage lose their housing.
Wow.
But if you stay, kind of with engaged, over 80% of the people we work with do get housing and keep it. Wow. So we have been quite successful in that, maintaining that relationship and getting people kind of into housing and keeping them there, which is something we're really, really proud of.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as you sort of described, there's this sense of community, and you start to build in a bit of a social network for folks.
Yeah.
And having that point person, as you described, a number of us maybe sort of take for granted in some ways. We have significant other, a family member, a friend, someone we can reach out to either bounce things off of or when we need help. And as you've kind of described, for some of these folks, like it's not an option. They don't have anyone.
Yeah.
So to be able to be that for them.
Yeah.
It's such a huge asset.
Yeah. Positive social networks are such a hugely important part of success.
Yeah. And as you said, like you'll have not only a potentially dedicated worker that you can reach out to, but you may have connected with some of the folks at the house while you've been there.
Yeah.
And so they may be able to maintain some of those relationships.
Yeah. And we don't impose a length of program on our guests. So we do, I mean, the goal is to kind of wean people off, but we just did actually a public awareness campaign on Blooming House. It was, I don't know if either of you saw it, but it was all over the place. So we had bus ads and we had Guardian ads and CBC ads. It was all over Facebook. But in it, we highlighted 2 of our past guests and their successes. And one of them, she hasn't stayed with us in years. She's been housed for a number of years now, but we still connect with her. Like, you know, Tavy will take her a cake on her birthday, or we will go out to lunch, or every once in a while we do kind of like touch base and connect. And I think that is so special what our staff have been able to do to form meaningful and lasting relationships with these people. I think speaks really to the quality of the staff we've been able to, to be so fortunate to have work for us, but also just the time and effort and energy they put into that aspect. It's just that's one of the things we are most proud of, and we really like to highlight.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done a good job of navigating that sort of, we're here if you need us, but if you don't need us, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of the tricky balance to find sometimes.
Yeah, it is. I liken it a lot to, we kind of think of the shelter as like, it's like when you're living at home before, maybe you're in high school and you're living at home. So your parents really kind of take care of most things for you. And you don't really understand that they're taking care of a lot of things for you because that's what parents do.
Yeah.
And then, we can kind of get you like into like a dormitory style life where like we still check in all the time and we make sure, and eventually we want you to get like your own apartment in university that, you might not necessarily do it to your parents' standards, but like it's your own and you make it your own and you stop calling us kind of as much. So that's kind of how we always envision this path, is we always liken it to that.
Yeah, moving through the levels of independence.
Yes, exactly.
To a place where somebody can manage their own life.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. I like that.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting too what you sort of highlighted about this piece around the stagnant piece of people getting kind of stuck. And I know we see that across sort of the community right now is this challenge. And I think this idea of like engaging landlords and having a caseworker attached and kind of taking that proactive approach really is something that certainly Conor highlighted. We also are in the business of doing, and I think as a community we're looking at, how can we kind of on more of a global level do that better of engaging landlords and being proactive and building relationships.
Yeah, it's been a real challenge. I mean, there's really no sugarcoating it. There is just no housing available across many spectrums. And so we've had to become much more creative and much more proactive in attempting to kind of secure that housing. We used to, transition 12, 15 different individuals out of shelter a year. I think last year we got 3. So it's a very dramatic decline. And of course, the issues become exacerbated the longer you stay in shelter. We do our best to make shelter a nice place to be, but at the end of the day, it is a homeless shelter.
It's meant to be temporary.
It's meant to be temporary. That is what we are. That is our mandate. It is an emergency shelter. You cannot stay past 8 a.m. It is not a home. It is a shelter. Even though we provide all those other things to attempt to make it comfortable, that's not what it's designed to be. And so, we're really seeing some serious issues in getting people moved past shelter, because there's just nothing
And do you-
appropriate there.
And do you think that that's attributable like just to the lack of housing, or do you think there are other issues maybe that are behind that?
I think there are a lot of things at play. I mean, these are like large systemic issues at this point. I think if we had a wide supply of housing, then we could maybe address some of those issues and those, areas of people's lives that they're having struggles with might just holistically get better if they were housed and things wouldn't like keep on the decline. But certainly there are other things
for sure
at play.
But I mean, there's no shortage of like data and examples out there in the community that show that like if you give people who are struggling with a number of different issues, if you give them stable housing, it just gives them a base of operations to stabilize the rest of their lives, and those issues will start to decrease if you're able to get that one piece in place. So
you lower that toxic stress, you lower that constant like, where am I going to be, where's my stuff, what am I doing tonight, who's going to be there, where am I sleeping, like those are not minor issues, right? Like those are major burdens on people's psyches.
You can't deal with your issues if you're constantly in survival mode.
You absolutely cannot. No.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. And you see that a lot. When people start to feel safe and comfortable in a space of their own, then everything else starts to come down a bit.
Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about sort of what Blooming House does, kind of where things are at. Anything kind of in the works in terms of events, projects, expansion, things that you're sort of thinking of or that you want to share with us here?
So yes is the question, is the answer, I suppose. I probably am not allowed to go too deep into the expansion part yet because we really are still kind of in beginning stages. We've always had the goal, the plans, the dreams to expand. Like I said earlier, Blooming House is only 5 years old, and it was really kind of launched. Liz, my co-founder, and I kind of like drug it into existence and took the last 5 years really to stabilize it. And we feel like we're in a really good, stable spot with the shelter now. But as we have all kind of mentioned and know anyway, the next stage housing needs to be put in place. So that is on our radar, but there is no, unfortunately, anything imminent. Events, we have a large fundraising event in October. It's called Ride for Refuge. It's on a Saturday, the first Saturday, October 5th. It's like a family-friendly walk, bike, run, get out, kind of move around. It's our only big fundraiser that we put on ourselves each year. So this is our third attempt and our second. Hopefully, we got knocked out by Fiona year one. It hit like 4 days before we were supposed to go. So yeah, ouch is appropriate. We ran an actual successful event last year, so that was awesome. And then we're gonna do it again this year. So we are always looking for teams and sponsors and people to come out and kind of make it a big day. That's in October. And what was the other thing?
Where does that take place?
That takes place at Brackley Commons.
Oh, nice.
So you can get all the information like on our Facebook and on our website, and it's all over there. Bethany will be plugging it left, right, and center. But yeah, it should be a great day. We have a couple of different things lined up for this year. So it was officially kicked off at the start of the month, and Bethany will be working hard over the next little bit to pull all the pieces together, and hopefully, I hope she's listening because she told me she was going to, and now I'm going to make it painful for her too. Last year, she had the flu the day of the event, and Liz and I were not prepared to take her place. So there was a lot of last-minute scrambling that we did not want her to know about. As we tried to like piece the event together as not the leaders of the event. So hopefully she stays well this year.
So we've got no hurricanes,
no
illness.
No, right. So hopefully like third time's a charm, right? Like this time we'll just go off without a hitch. So yes, that's in October.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've made a note of that. Like you said, and as you shared, it'll be all over your social media and stuff like that. But I made a note so we can put that out to the team and
That'd be great.
see
Yeah.
if anyone amongst the crew wants to participate.
Yeah,
and jump
we
in.
would love that. Yeah,
Very fun.
absolutely.
So I'll just circle back for a second that you sort of highlighted next stage transitional housing as being on your wish list. Not to put you on the spot with that aspect, but I think that's interesting because we're seeing that as a bit of a trend. I know Lifehouse in Summerside has moved towards that. Nikki at Chief Mary Bernard spoke about that being in the works there as well. So I think we're seeing a bit of that of, you've got the relationship with the individuals in shelter, well-established rapport, and then if they can move to something from there, you've got that next step already there and that relationship in place.
Yeah, and I think that continuity is so important. Nobody likes to retell their story. Nobody likes to try and form new relationships all the time, especially like these are very vulnerable relationships.
Right.
And so I think kind of the longer you can keep people moving with the same, as much stability as possible, I think is your higher chance of success. And it's a logical next step for us. We've said many times that, and everybody likes to tell me this as well, that emergency shelter is just a Band-Aid solution.
Sure.
And my response has always been like, yes, but a Band-Aid is also a necessary medical tool. Like we all use Band-Aids and we all have Band-Aids, and there's lots of times you just need a Band-Aid.
Sure.
And so we will continue to provide that, but there's lots of times that you're like continuing to bleed through the Band-Aid, and we really need to give some more care after that. We cannot just keep putting more bandages on top of it.
But things can get a lot worse a lot quicker without that Band-Aid.
Exactly. Like,
right.
How many times have we, you need Band-Aids.
Yeah.
You have some right there, in fact. And so I think kind of that next step is just so key, and it is the biggest gap we see in the services available, specifically on PEI. I think there's amazing work being done by many organizations to do all of the other pieces, the case working, the addictions treatment, the mental health, the justice piece, the education piece, the employment piece, like all of those other things. You need a place to live at the end of the day. All those things are amazing and wonderful, but you still need a place to go day in, day out. And so, I think that's probably just our next logical step and where we would love to be.
Yeah, in that model of having transitional housing or supportive housing, sort of whatever you want to term it out, depending on how you're going to define what that looks like. But that idea of having that staff-supported experience to prepare people to then move to something where they are completely independent, it makes sense as a bit of a bridge for not necessarily everybody, but for a number of folks.
Yeah.
That, as you sort of alluded to earlier, to go into that environment after leaving shelter, that's a extreme change and an extreme jump. So having something in between to sort of ease that process, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, going to independent housing is an extreme jump for everybody.
Sure.
Right? And so then you add on some adverse childhood experiences, some significant trauma, some addictions issues, some mental health issues. It is now too big of a leap.
Sure.
It is now almost impossible. And I think people kind of forget that we all at one point in time had to go into our own housing and relied very heavily on our support networks to make that happen. And I'll speak for myself. I was fortunate that I didn't have all of those extra pieces at play, and I still had to call my mom all the time, or somebody to come and help me be like, where do I get my phone hooked up, or whatever that first thing is, or that thing is that you have to do for the first time.
Yeah, the sink's leaking. How do I fix it? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all those life experiences and sort of life skills that you talked about earlier, that if you've not been taught them or not been through them, you don't know.
No, you just don't know. Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to add about Blooming House before we throw out a couple community events and move towards the end of our time?
Not off the top of my head, no. No, I think that we're really proud of being open for 5 years. We've become really stable. We're ready for the next step. We have an incredible staff that I am so thankful for, that keep that shelter rolling. I certainly cannot take credit for the majority of that work. And so we like to thank them whenever possible. So we're so appreciative of our staff.
Where can people find out more about Blooming House on like the internet or social media?
That's easy. So we have a website, bloominghouse.ca. We actually just had it all redone start of this year. We launched it on our birthday. So that has all kinds of stuff on there. That has our campaign that we just ran. So you can see all of those stories on there. It'll have the Ride for Refuge event on there. And then also we're on Instagram and Facebook and probably LinkedIn. Again, should have asked Bethany. LinkedIn. I think she dabbled in TikTok for a while, but I don't know. I'm too old for TikTok. So she might have done that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay, so a few sort of community events to touch on. We did have the Kings County workshop that we spoke about on the podcast last time. Connor, we were both there, and we actually had Stacy from
Stacy made it. Great.
Bloom House was a last minute addition.
Awesome.
So we were fortunate to have both organizations with 3 different people representing. So I'll feel free to sort of chime in with what you took away from that, but overall I think it was a great success.
I thought it was too. It was really well attended. It was nice to see such a wide array of organizations there involved in the issue. And one thing I really liked that I heard, there was one guy there who was not really affiliated with any organization. He was just kind of a community member, described himself as like a semi-retired potato farmer. And he was just there because somebody had mentioned it to him and he wanted to learn more about the issue and find out kind of what he could do. And I thought that was great. And that's what we need more of to help to address homelessness. So I really like seeing that.
Yeah, no, it was neat to have people from sort of all different organizations and backgrounds, all of which had an interest in seeing Kings County, move forward to a better spot.
I think that's so important that you had somebody there. I think it's interesting that Liz and I were those people, like not that long ago. I have a background in engineering. Liz has a background in journalism, but for all intents and purposes, we have absolutely no reason to start a homeless shelter or no business doing that either. We really had no idea what we were doing. But if you are somebody in your community who strongly believes that there is a solution out there that you can help provide, you don't necessarily already have to have an organization, and maybe you can become the organization. I don't think it's necessary to always be looking to somebody else. It's not always the government's problem. That if you want to solve it, or at least play a part in that solution, that taking an interest and putting that out there can often lead to what is now, an established organization that does things. So I think it's so important that the community take initiative. I think you can tailor it towards your community. I think you know best what your community needs a lot of the time. And organizations are stretched thin.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to grow an organization. And so I think that's great that you had somebody there that kind of took it upon themselves to learn more about the issue.
Yeah, no, you're right. We were fortunate that either informal or formal, we had a lot of passionate folks around Kings County that really, they want to see change and they want to make sure that they are, they're getting their needs met and they're being heard. And so I think this was a good way of providing them a platform that we can say, hey.
And that is what will make it successful.
And an opportunity to network, right, for those people that are there and wanting to kind of start something or in the ground, like the early stages of starting something, to talk to these more established organizations and learn how you get that off the ground, how you get funding, how you do this and that, right? That networking is a hugely important part too.
Yeah, and there was one committee started by Norma Dingwell at the Southern Kings Food Bank there, in combination with Haley Zavo from Meals on Wheels. So they've got like a Kings County initiative that they've been working on and are expanding. And then as well, there was interest to put together a steering committee with some of the organizations that attended afterwards. So I think one might grow and one might become existent, which
Yeah.
would both be great steps to see.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But community backing is one of the hardest pieces to get. And so if it's a community-led initiative, then that takes care of like one of the biggest and most challenging pieces of the puzzle. I think I can't understate how much I believe in that kind of grassroots community-led initiative.
Yeah. And that's what we recognized is we wanted to give them a platform to come and speak at the event and let everybody know what they're up to and say, if you want to be a part of this, this is how.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The other big thing approaching, and we'll get into it more on a later date because we have time, is the point in time count in October. So we'll touch more about that in future episodes, but just to put that on people's radar, we'll be doing some information and training sessions and spreading the word about what that looks like. We'll make sure that there's some information on the John Howard website about that as we inch closer here as well.
Absolutely. And, I think we should mention this is the first time that this point in time count is going to include Kings County.
Yes.
And that just gets again to the importance of, having the most accurate data we can on not just numbers, but demographics and things of that of the people experiencing homelessness. So that's a really big step.
It is. It's huge. It's very important for them. Another sort of means of recognizing that they are part of the province and that region is just as important as the other two.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think we've done a good job of kind of covering, some updates, some community information, learning about Blooming House. Anything either of you wanted to share before we wrap up for today?
No, other than thank you for having me. I love talking about Blooming House. I will come back and do that anytime.
Just as always, check us out on Facebook, John Howard Society PEI, like our Facebook page, and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
That's right. Yeah, thanks for putting that out there, Connor. We can be found on the YouTube channel, John Howard Society of PEI. You can find this episode as well as past ones and future ones. Thanks again to both of you for coming in and spending some time. And thanks to everyone out there for listening. Our next episode will be Friday,